What's up, guys? Paul Wolf here, back at home here at the shop. Came back from Crandon. It's been a little bit. I've tried to wait a little while to do a post race. Obviously, the big story we'll get to is we obviously missing some parts. We had a little bit of a tumble. I'll get to that. So let's just start at the beginning. We came out to Crandon. We knew that we had a really good car last year. I felt like we had a really good car this year going into it. I did some testing, was a little bit concerned with the gearing I put in the car. Being that they took out the long course cowboy turn in the back, I knew I needed to gear the car down to maximize my power in my car. I don't have the biggest power plant. I know you got Paul Horschel and Brett Harold. Them guys are throwing down some big power numbers, and they're pretty good about getting it to the ground a lot of times. So I knew I needed to maximize what I have. And so I picked some gearing out, some really actually low gearings. That way I was pretty much to the rev limiter in the straightaways. Any of the longest straight there, I almost tapped the rev limiter when I was running the fastest laps I could. Rolling right into it, we went out to first practice. Car felt really good. We actually lowered the car down, so we did change that. We lowered the car, but we retain our spare and our winch and all that. I don't really find it necessary to change a bunch of stuff on the car. I think it messes with your shock setup. So we just lowered the car down a little bit, went out, ran, the car felt really good, did a few tweaks on the suspension, stiffened it up and opened some stuff up on it to make it a little better bump zones and whatnot. And then went right into it. So we practiced, and then our practice was our heat rate, was our qualifying times. It was practice and qualifying together on our second practice. So I went out, and I personally like to lay back and get a gap between me and the guy in front of me so I don't run up on him. So I go out, I find a line that I like, cruising, and then I pull way back and try to separate myself from everybody. And then that way I can make one really, really hard run lap to qualify out front. So I just laid pretty far back, got a good gap between me where I only had to deal with like one or two cars in my fast lap, let's say. So I ran the rocks hard, got around the first one right away, and then I think I come around, crossed the jumps through the big turn and the second rock garden. I got by the second guy and then finished the lap out, was able to make a good solid qualifying lap. Felt super good about it. We did have some issues though with qualifying. I was doing some stuff to the car. I had to change a temperature sensor in the side of the block. So when I filled the car back up with water, I had some guys helping me and I wasn't paying attention. And one of the guys put the radiator cap on the car and he didn't tighten it. He just set it up there. And I walked back, looked at it, said, oh, okay, cool, radiator cap's on. Paneled the car back up, went out to qualify. Luckily, I made my fast qualifying lap and I thought I had a little more in the car, so I was gonna do it again, and the car got hot. And I was like, oh crap, what's going on? So I pulled over, stopped, and the car normally pulls itself right back down on temperature. It started climbing higher at an idle. And I got out, looked to make sure the fans were turning, I looked back inside the car's still gaining temperature, so I just shut it off. I'm normally not a fan of shutting the car off really hot like that. I like to let it pull down on its own and then turn it off, but in that situation I didn't have a choice. Had the guys pull me back to pit, realized that we had a bunch of antifreeze all down the side of the car, cleaned the car all back up, found the radiator cap was not, it was actually, ironically, it was still sitting there, but it was clearly not tight on the car, so we kind of knew what happened. Got the car back full of water, antifreeze, everything, put the cap back on correctly this time. Went out for our night practice, ran a practice there. I didn't push the car real hard at night. I knew from qualifying I had a really solid car, a really good car, so I just left the car alone, did a few shock tweaks to it, and that was about it. And then we just waited for race day. Came race day, first race day, we took off. Shannon Campbell got the whole shot. They really pushed us to hold our lines up there, and they forced me to start against the wall, being I was on pole position, which I didn't feel like was the best spot to start, but that's where they required me to start. I felt like being pole I should get a pick, but they didn't allow that, so I had to start against the wall, which meant I had to really pedal the car to stop from sliding up track and taking out other competitors. in turn one, which kind of gave the guys on the outside, I felt like, a better run, and normally could pull me out of the hole. You get better hole shot. Shannon did an awesome job, come out in front. We come into the first rock section, and I was able to get up next to him, and when we hit the rocks, I just pushed the car real hard to get that clean air and pulled away from him in the rocks. We went into the second rock section, and he actually ran the rock section a little faster than I did. He closed up on me, and then I think he had issues after that and kind of fell off pace. And I just kind of kept my pace going, and I just tried to keep the car where it was smooth. I pushed the car, but not to the point where I felt like it was taking any hard hits anywhere. And we just started clicking laps off, and I was talking to my spotters the whole time about where everybody was behind me. And then we got into lap traffic, and my biggest goal was to just pass guys very clean. Don't risk the car in a passing situation. One of the downfalls I did have to deal with a lot was when I was passing lap guys, my car was set up to really hit the rocks hard. So if I hit them slow, the car would start falling down between the rocks and start bouncing real bad. So I had to carry a certain amount of speed through the rocks. If I slowed down too much, the car would get really rough in the rocks, and I had to almost slow down to a crawl. So I really had to pick and choose and gauge where guys were. So like, if I knew I couldn't pass a guy before a rock section and it was kind of one-lined, I would have to fall way back, let him get through the rocks so I could carry my speed into the rocks and not hurt my car, and then pass him after the rocks. But I was able to play the game really well and did really good on strategy. And we ended up winning with I think we had like a 30-second lead, which is huge for Crandon. Normally you're racing wheel to wheel at Crandon. So I was really happy with that. Everything went great. All right, now rolling into Sunday's race. A lot more interesting stuff happened in Sunday's race. Got a little Western. Same kind of deal, hole shot. I had the pole, so I had to go against the wall again. I tried to get them to let me to move out. They wouldn't allow it. So they told us, hey, hold your lines through turns 1 and 2, don't move. So come out of the hole shot, car left hard, everything worked great. Pedaled the car on the inside to stop from sliding up into people. Allowed the guys on the outside of me to kind of get around me. Brett Harold had an awesome hole shot, and that big power, he just pulled right out front. Me and Lauren fell in next to each other, and then we were coming into the left-handed turn, the big sweeper, after the second jump, and you end up with 2 lanes. You end up with a lane on the inside where Brett was, and you end up with the cushion. And a lot of guys are trying to make a big deal about it up there. The bottom line is me and Lauren both went for the cushion. It's racing, I mean, there's what we thought was the best line. What can I say? We're super competitive, and I guess we think alike. We both went for the same section of ground, and there's only room for one car, and we made a little bit of contact, and I ended up rolling the car over pretty good. And in the process, unknowingly, we bent these rear coilover and bypass right here on the back side of the car. I was unaware of bending them, but it happens. We damaged our radios inside the car. The roof panel dented in and broke the back of the radio off. So I didn't have radio communications to the spotter tower. And then just nothing real major. The chassis took it extremely well from what I can tell. That's why the car's stripped down like it is right now. Obviously, I went through all the welds of the chassis and checked it all over. I've checked all the FK hind ends, and they're all good. So we got really lucky. The only thing we really tore up was our light bar was a major, and some roof panels, and then these 2 shocks. So the car, we rolled it all the way over and ended up back on its tires. I backed out, took off, pulled in the pit, took the light bar off because it was bouncing all over the hood, and then went back out, and I kind of knew my race was over at that point, and to be perfectly honest, I was pretty pissed off. Just not really, at the time it was probably directed a little bit at Lauren, but it was just mad that I wrecked the car. I really felt like I had the fastest car, and I wanted to prove I had the fastest car, and I got that. I wasn't able to do that. It just part of racing. So I just went back out, and my thought was, if I can't win the race, I can at least throw down the fastest lap and prove I have the fastest car that way. And so we just rolled out on the track, took off, I think I made 2 or 3 laps. I really honestly don't even remember. And just really pushed the car hard, like really pushed on it. And at first the car felt really good. I didn't know inside the car that with the shaft being bent, it was bleeding oil out of the shocks on this side of the car. And so it was losing shock fluid, losing shock pressure. And finally I had a shock failure. And the shocks failed on this side of the car, broke them. And it is what it is. But I was able to make the fastest lap and prove that this car is not only tough, and it can do every type of racing. It can do short course, it can do rocks, King of Hammers, it does everything. And I think it does it one of the best. So really, really happy with it. And it held up to another hard race and a hard beating on the car, and it held up phenomenally. So Joe does a great job building the chassis. Huge shout out to Brannick Motorsports, FK Rod Ends, Nitto Raceline, Steve Morgan on the motor, because I got it hot and it's still running good. ATO Transmissions, Jim up there, and then we got TubeWorks differentials in the car, do great. And of course Radflow, these shocks on the car were phenomenal. Wayne come out there and help me tune them in. If you guys have shock issues, get with Wayne. He can set up anything. He works on my UTVs to this car. He does everything. I hear it even works on planes in Alaska. So he's a really cool guy, and very, very smart and very knowledgeable. Rugged Radios, they're getting my radios fixed, so I'll have comms for the next race, and we'll be ready to go. Thank you to everybody that helps out and keeps this thing going, and I appreciate it. And I hope everybody just let some of the drama go, man. It's a racing accident. Stuff happens. We show up to race, and everybody's trying their hardest. Things are going to happen. Accidents are going to happen. So let's just move forward and go racing.